Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and I added another feature to my mercedutils library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this practice project we did in the first video where I demonstrated it, and I am going to delete mercedutils from there because there's a newer version. So I'm going to save that, and then I am going to delete the node modules folder, move to trash. And we are going to cd into this folder, node practice, cd into prac3, and we are going to install mercedutils again. Okay, I think I'm on 1.06 now. Well, we'll find out in a second. There, yep, 1.06. So, cool. Now let's see here. So in the previous video, we kind of went over the features. What I did is I added something that's in the utils function. So now you'll also be able to grab the fetcher. Now the fetcher is a object or a class that can be used to help make it easier to do API calls. Basically, the way it works is, let's say I want to create a object to get from a particular URL. So actually, let's use JSON placeholder. So let's go over here, JSON placeholder, and I'm just gonna grab this URL right here. Okay, so usually you would have to do like fetch, and then after you do the fetch, you do a dot then, you take the response and you turn it into JSON, and you take the JSON and you do whatever you're gonna do with it. Kind of like Axios, it kind of skips that second step, so that way you can just go straight to acting it. Just slightly different. Kind of added a couple little extra utilities to it. So let's see here. So you would do a new fetcher, and that new fetcher you would then pass in the URL as a parameter. Save. Okay, so now the fetcher is created. So now if I want to go get the URL, I just type in get.call. And then I can pass in my callback here. So I would just basically do here, JSON console.log JSON. So I'm console logging the JSON. Then if I want to, I could pass in a parameter object here. And then as a third parameter, I could pass in an addition to the URL. So what I could have done is I could have just made this, JSON placeholder typeofcode.com/ and then basically, which actually we'll do that example in a second. We'll come back to that. But basically, if I do this, so get is the object I created, the new fetcher, and get.call/JSON. There we go, and we just call console.log JSON, and that should work. Because the URL is already baked into the object, so I can make as many calls as I want whenever I want without having to type in the URL again, or even type in a variable called URL. So then let's run that, node index.js. And see, it just makes the API call, and then I console logged it, so the information is available. Now, a cool thing on top of that is that when it runs the call, it actually saves the data inside the object of your most recent call. So that way, if for some reason you need to recall the data again, it would have to be somewhere in your code that you know is going to be after the call has completed, after the call has resolved. But you can do that. So you could just do, and just to show you that, I would just do get.recall. And then that will actually, and actually I want to console log that. So I would the console.log that function. And say, cool. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's the simple use of the. But what I could do is I could do something like this. I could just call this instead JSON placeholder as a variable. Okay, and then instead just take this URL and do this. Okay, so that was just the core root, and then basically this becomes JSON placeholder dot call, and then after this parameter is over, which is right here, so that's the first argument, Second argument is where you'd pass in like a config option. So if you wanted to do something like where you want to do like a method and it's a get, and you want to do headers and all that stuff. So you would pass in that configuration object. So if you've used fetch, this is where you'd pass in your configuration object. I'm just going to pass in an empty object. And then for the third argument, you can pass in a string that will be appended to the URL. So in that case, that part that I just cut out, I will copy it back from over here. I can just put in to-dos 1 here, save. And plop that there. Save, and it'll make the call with that endpoint. So then I hit save, we run it, node index, and see, it still works. But now, I can just kind of save all those little endpoints, or quickly switch between them. So I can now actually, even that, I could be like, let's go back to here. I can just change the 2 for another call, save. I get to be the second one. I can change this to ID 3. It'll give me the third one. Okay, so that's just kind of a nice flexibility because you're not having to type in the entire URL every time. You can just put in the base and quickly append it's built in to let you append on the object at every call. So that's just a nice way to be making API calls. I think this kind of makes it a little bit easier than a fetch or an Axios. And has a nice a bit of flexibility. So you can do it this way, which is just the base URL. I also like the pattern that I had before, where basically I had one called get, another one called post. So if it's for your application, you could just take your get, post, update, and delete URLs, and then just make them separate objects. Get, post, delete, and then you just make the appropriate calls using the appropriate object, and just makes your code kind of organized. So that's what Fetcher does. Again, it just adds this class called Fetcher. So again, ideal, the way I kind of imagine using it is kind of you'd be like const get equals new fetcher, and then you would put sort of like your base get URL for your application. Then you would do like a const post equals new fetcher, and then you would put like your base post URL, and then again you can just append whatever you need for the particular call you're making at the end of the URL using an argument const patch put const delete. And the beauty of this is that your code's gonna be pretty readable because you're gonna know what when you see like put this, post that, it's gonna be clear what kind of calls you're making. Okay, kind of like when you're using Express and it's just like app.get, app.post, but now we're talking about the calls you're making instead of the Rust that you're receiving. So I thought that was a nice way of handling that. On your front end code or back end API calls or whatever. So hopefully you guys enjoy this additional feature. Again, this is just comes with the mercedutils package. So you still have all the other cool stuff. So all the other cool sort of random number functions, all the additional super array methods that get added to the array, prototype. So read the docs. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. But if you've seen the 2 videos I've done on this, you know all the features that are in this package. And there's a lot of cool ones. So check it out. See you guys later.